Hey everyone, this is Pallavi and I'm back with the fifth game of the book called Chess, the Art of Logical Thinking by Neil MacDonald. This game was played between Nunn and Sokolov in Dubai in 1986. The opening play was Sicilian Defence. Before we look at the game, let's look at some rules that can be broken. In certain situations, breaking classical chess rules can be justified. Number one, prioritizing careful development of a piece to an optimal square might outweigh the rush to put it on a decent square. Some setups revolve around a critical piece that can define a winning strategy. It's often wise to either exchange this piece if the opponent owns it or protect it from threats if it's part of your own forces. Number three, delaying kingside castling could enable queenside castling and initiate a pawn-based assault on the opponent's kingside. Number four, positions with fixed or blocked pawn centers naturally resist attacks, allowing for delayed development in favor of more strategic moves. Let's see the game. White started with e4, occupying the center and gaining space, making way for the queen and the bishop to come out. Now black played c5. The focus is on disrupting the balance by exerting control over the d4 square. Now white played knight f3, developing knight before bishop and developing it toward the center. e6. In response, black opens up the e7 square for either his knight or bishop and establishes a strong block on the diagonal that leads to f7. A square that white often aims for in the early part of the game. Now white played d4. Only now white regains control of the d4 square without needing to lose time with his queen or make any gambits. C takes d4. If black ignored white's last move, then d5 would nail down a space advantage in the center. Knight takes d4, an excellent center square for the knight, as the only way a pawn can dislodge it is with e5, e6 to e5, which would represent a serious loss of time as black has already played e6. Now black played knight c6. Black finds another way to challenge the white knight. Knight c3, the most active move that calls up reinforcements from the queen side. a6. While white goes for a direct approach in moving their pieces, black takes more time to achieve strategic goals. For example, black makes a small pawn move that will help them expand on the queen side later. If black's plan works, it's seen as smart, but if it fails, people might criticize it. It's a balance between positioning pieces well and getting them to work together quickly. Bishop e2. White continues to develop his pieces. d6. Black forms the hedgehog center, a key feature of the Sicilian defense. This arrangement provides black with less space than other responses like e4 with e5. Yet it's tough for attackers to break through. Bishop e3. Nunn develops for all four minor pieces and solidifies his center in just 7 moves. This is good as long as he can make a plan to use this advantage effectively. Queen c7. On the other hand, Sokolov takes his time to advance his kingside pieces. This brings another benefit of a6 into focus. The queen can occupy this strategic square, exerting influence over the center without being disturbed by knight b5, because the pawn is now controlling it. Now white played f4. With all his pieces ready for action, white must figure out how to employ them effectively. Nunn opts for the straightforward plan of attacking the e6 pawn, ultimately targeting the black king in the process. Knight a5. Black's very relaxed attitude toward development goes to an extreme. He seems unconcerned about the king side. He wants to place his knight on c4 and to attack the b4 b2 pawn and the e3 bishop, which is white is likely to capture on c4 with this bishop, giving black the bishop pair in the long term. But can black afford this slow move right now? Now white played castle. 2 moves in 1. The white king is evacuated from the center and the rook is brought to f1, where it can support the f4, f5 advance. After castling, black played knight c4. Black confidently persists with this plan even though there are concerning signals on the king side. Bishop took the knight. The knight is much too dangerous to be tolerated on c4. Queen takes bishop. The black queen is on the weakest point in white's area, a central square that's not well defended. However, as the saying goes, one man in the field isn't an army, and the queen lacks support from other black pieces. White played f5. The white attacking force has reached the defensive line. One player has finished castling and has 3 smaller pieces and a rook on the board. The other player has only their queen moving. Bishop e7. Black develops his bishop before the knight as he fears that after knight f6, then f takes e6, f takes e6, white will sacrifice the exchange with rook takes f6, g takes f6, when queen h5 check exposes the king, the black king, to the might of all the white pieces. So black played bishop e7 instead. Queen g4. White's advantage is temporary. If black manages to develop, he might even have the advantage. So white can't waste time and uses his queen to attack both e6 and g7. Now black played h5. This forces the white queen to retreat, as if queen takes g7, then bishop f6, and it's a double attack. Black will win the knight on d4. So after h5, white played queen f3. The queen isn't discouraged by moving back to the strong attacking square f3. This is particularly true because black won't find a safe spot for his king on the king side after playing h5, which weakens his position. So after queen f3, black played bishop to f6. So the bishop blocks the f file to meet the threat of f takes e6, f takes e6, then queen f7 check, and at the same time attacks the knight on d4 along with the queen. So after bishop f6, now white played f takes e6. Nonetheless, the f5 will still prove to be a vital chance for attack for the white pieces. F takes e6. After bishop takes e6. If bishop takes e6, black's control of the key squares d5 and f5 would be severely weakened, which would allow the response knight f5, menacing a fork on d6. So after f takes e6, white played e5. Brilliant attacking move that clears the e4 square for the knight. No time is to be given to black to develop his pieces. D takes e5. Because if bishop takes pawn, then queen f8 check, king d7, rook f7 check, knight e7 only move, and then queen takes knight, and it's a checkmate. So after e5, black played d takes e5, knight e4. The knight joins the action with a direct threat of knight d6 check to capture the queen. It's a fork. Queen c7. A clever defensive maneuver, the queen moves back to safeguard the second rank. Queen g3. White pins the e5 pawn to prevent black taking on d4 and introduces the idea of queen g6 check. Black played knight e7. Black has to cover the g6 square. even though it means that the barrier on f6 will collapse. So, after queen c7, white played queen g3. So, with the idea of queen g6 check, queen f7, knight d6 check wins the queen. Otherwise, black king would be vulnerable to an attack following a sacrifice on f6. So, after queen g3, rook a d1. Not the time for white to take on f6. White brings his last unused piece into play. White has both rooks active, while black's rooks aren't as engaged. Black faces difficulty defending due to being outnumbered. Black played h4. Black hopes to drive the white queen away from g3 and so win the d4 knight, which will unpin the e5 pawn. Now, white played knight takes f6 check. White wins the g7 square for his queen. G takes f6, a necessary recapture with which both the white queen and knight are hanging. Queen g7. He attacks the rook and so gains time to dismantle the pawn barricades around the black king. Rook f8. If black had played rook g8, then queen takes f6, e takes d4, queen f7 check, king d8, and then rook takes d4, bishop to d7. And then queen f8 check, rook takes, and it's a checkmate. And after queen f7 check, if king d7, then rook takes d4 check, king c6, and then rook c4 check, loses the queen by skewer. And after rook takes d4 check, instead of bishop d7, if black plays knight d5, then queen takes g8, wins a rook. So black played rook f8. Then white played rook takes f6, attacking the rook on f8. Rook captured rook, queen captured rook, and then black played queen d6. Black tries his last trick, a pin on the knight on d4. Now, white played bishop g5, ignoring the pinned knight. E takes d4. And now, white played rook takes d4. Now, a rook, queen, bishop attack a king defended by a queen and a knight. With weak pawn protection and an exposed back rank, the outcome is one-sided. Black played knight d5, blocking the attack on the queen. Now white played rook takes d5, a simple but elegant finale. Now if black takes with the pawn, then he loses the queen. And if he takes with the queen, then he loses his king to checkmate on e7 with the support of the bishop. So that was the game. That's how Nunn won the game. So, principles to keep in mind. Occupy the center with pawns. Develop your pieces rapidly towards the center. Develop knights before bishops. Castle as early as possible. A knight on a rim is dim. Do not neglect or delay piece development. Bring your rooks on open files or files likely to be opened. Thank you for watching. I hope you like this video as well. Please like, comment, share and subscribe to my channel. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.